My name's Nicole Early. I'm the founder of Early PR. We're a human-centered PR firm where we empower change makers and uplift community. And I'm so excited to get a chance to talk to someone I've had the honor of working with. You know her or them as a visionary, a community organizer, of course, the executive director of Imagine Black, Alise Davis.
So excited to see you.
So today we're just going to explore the roots and evolution of the work that we've been doing around reimagining public safety and what that means and some of the roots of that work. Together, we're going to talk about the evolution of Imagine Black, the impact of the project, and how each of us can play a role in this work today and in community. So my first question for you, Joy, is what was the initial inspiration for Imagine Black?
Yeah, thank you. Such a great question. And also like give it up for Nicole. Come on. Like the whole fit is amazing.
Thank you.
I want to take us back to 2009. So shout out to all the folks who've been with us since the POF days, all the many hands and volunteers and staff that poured quite a lot of love and inspiration into this organization. So back in 2009, a group of around 20 Black leaders came together and they wanted to create a unified action agenda. They recognized that we are way more powerful together than we are apart. You know how Portland and Oregon can get, like you're getting your bubble, you're doing great work, and wanted to have a moment for us to come together and coordinate and strategize and make an organized demand together. So over the years, many organizations were able to put staff members would come and they would meet monthly. We would build, we would dream. Some amazing staff members. Shout out to Lakeitha in the corner. I know you just walked
Hey,
in.
Lakeitha.
Old Paul staff put a lot of love into the organization. 10 years later, so in 2019, we decided to change our name. And part of that was we recognized that we needed to be a little bit more inclusive. We recognized that there are tons of Black immigrants and refugees who are in this space who may not identify with the name African American or the phrase. There's some Caribbean folks here. There's some like Afro-Latina folks. And they were like, African American may not be my title. Like Black is how I politicize and how I navigate this space. So we wanted to be mindful of that. And then our name change, we also wanted to honor, I think, the history around imagination, this Black radical imagination of Black folks coming together and dreaming together and visioning together, and how that is the first step to be able to do the actions that we need to do. In particular, that vision and dream keeps us going. It's so much easier to organize around fear, which is what we're seeing a lot with our opposition. It's very easy to do that work, but it's short. It's not long-term work. So we know that for us to do the long-term work, to get to Black liberation, we have to have a clear vision. We have to organize around joy and passion, things that we really care about in the world that we want to see. I can talk all day, so I'm going to stop and I'll circle back if I need to. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Joy. That was some great context and foundation setting. And building off of that, I'd love to hear, how did the Reimagining Public Safety Project come about?
Oh, y'all. So
Tell us the tea.
2020, I know. Let me go all the tea and looking at the camera. So 2020 was a big year for so much. I know we all remember. I think just the backdrop of the pandemic, the things that were happening with our economy, with the person running the country at the time that will not be named. And then I think for a lot of folks, they were wrestling with or understanding for the first time what I think as Black people we've known for a long time, that we live in a country that polices us differently than other folks, that we live in a heavy militarized place, a place of violence, that and interacting with a system that was designed actually to harm us, that has its roots in slave catchers and all the things that come of. So for a lot of us, we knew this history. We navigate it the way that we can. I have friends who have, when they see, they get stopped by the cops, they shake, they have panic attacks, or they cry, and they have this emotional history and triggering moments. So I think for the first time, our accomplices and allies learned for the first time what we know. There is an amazing Black leader locally, Lamar Wise. He works in the labor space. I remember he called me and he was like, "Hey, Joy, like there's a lot of white tier money right now." And he was like, what if we make this quick demand? What if we ask to do this statewide visioning? He was like, "I think there's something where there's a gap of understanding of what we need in this moment, and how do we actually do this long-term work that's necessary." We knew that we wanted to model it a little bit off for the People's Plan that we did a couple years ago. We wanted to add learning to it. We wanted to add visionary things. We wanted to come together and make that demand. Shout out, there are so many amazing, we had a council of Black leaders that came together and dreamt up a little bit more about what it would look like. We worked with Portland State University's Black Studies Department and Planning Department to work with folks who are currently incarcerated and folks who formerly were incarcerated to also start dreaming and thinking and centering them in this moment. And then we started planning and dreaming about this space. So I think the moment, what we were afraid of, if I'm quite honest, is that we would get stuck in the mobilizing piece and we wouldn't do the long-term work needed to organize. And we wanted to lay the foundations for the long haul, because we know this is going to be a long fight to liberation, a long dreaming moment as we think about public safety. So yeah, we came together, we asked for some money, we hired some folks, and we started building. And I think this space in particular, I'm just really grateful both to like the Imagine Black staff, the council,
Give it up
the
for the
funders.
staff.
Oh my gosh, yes. The video crews, all the folks who just been dreaming and planning, and I think doing that invisible labor that we always don't talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's crazy that was 5 years ago, 2020, to where we are today. So much has changed, yet so much has not changed and slowly deteriorating before our eyes. And this space is really to talk about, what does public safety mean to you all? Not in theory, but in your everyday life. What does it feel like? And what would it feel like if it truly centered community care? So that's what we're here for, and just that context really kind of takes me back to that feeling, that emotion that we felt when we were in the streets marching, which we're not doing that today. We're here building and dreaming centered care that revolves around us and our needs and our experiences. And Joy, I'd love to hear from you. What are you hoping people take away from the summit?
Ooh, good question. Can I say one quick thing before I answer
Yes.
that question that just popped in my mind? That organized demand piece. Do you remember during the protests, folks were trying to figure out what to do in the moment? There was this idea like, oh, we just need to support some Black businesses, and that will be it. I do want to be mindful. I love me some Black businesses. Like, shout out to all the LLCs in the room.
Not the LLC.
But what we know is like Black wealth won't necessarily save us from being over-policed. I'm thinking about, I think it was a couple years ago, there was like this NFL player in Florida that was arrested, that had wealth, celebrity, all the things, and he was still treated like all of us would be treated if we were detained and forcefully detained in the moment. So I think something about this moment is to really be clear about who our targets are. How do we actually get the change that we want? Like, yes, I want to support Black businesses, but I also want to change the conditions that allow. I want us to be safe and healthy.
Yeah.
I want to think about all the things that allow us to be to be healthy and safe in the space. But the things I think I'm hoping that we can come away with, I want us to be able to build some power. You know, I was talking to one of our amazing staff members, Dion, the other day, and they just got back from doing this great training with Mar and Keith out of state, and they reminded me of this quote by Alice Walker that just says, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. And I want us to remember that we're powerful in this space. I want us to think about how do we do that collective work together. I think this country wants us to think a lot about our individual power, but we know as Black people, ancestral, we know that we're powerful together. Like, that is actually how we do our best work. So I'm interested in trying to figure out how do we cultivate our power together? How do we dream a little bit more? I also am really interested in thinking about what the actions we need to take next. You know, when we think of public safety, I think of what are the things we need to make sure that we're healthy? You know, the safest communities have the most resources. So what does that look like in terms of food? Like, how do we have the food systems we need? What does food justice looks like? You know, the safest communities are healthiest one. Housing is a big part of public safety that we don't talk enough about. Education, public health, like public safety touches all of these spaces. So I'm excited for us to dream a little bit and be more intersectional in that approach. I also am really excited about us just connecting as people. I think, again, the community piece, this work can be very lonely and isolating. There's folks from around the state here, and how do we actually start building the connections and networking so that we can do this work long term? Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. It's more than just one thing. It's a holistic approach to making sure that we have a chance to live a healthy, holistic life, and we don't have to be in fear in our community. So thank you for saying that and sharing that quote with us. And I want to pause to take it back to church. If you haven't met someone new, let's take a moment and introduce yourself to someone new at your table, at the table across from you. You talked about making connections and getting out of our bubble a little bit. So introduce yourself to someone new. Thank you all for engaging in that. I hope you got to meet some new people, reconnect with some old folks, some older folks, and just connect, because that's what we're here to do. So thank you all for participating in that. I really appreciate it. Jumping back into this conversation though, Joy, take us back to 2020. What was Imagine Black? How did y'all show up in that moment?
Yeah. How did we show up? Well, I think some of it, to be honest, we were all dealing with a lot of fun mental health things at the moment. Like a lot of us were living alone. We're a little bit isolated and trying to find community. And, the pandemic was still the pandemic is still doing things today, but we were in the height of it. So I think what that allowed is that we were very reflective, I think. So in years past, Imagine Black, and particularly when we were under POLF, we talked a lot about reform. We did a whole section of our People's Plan that got released in 2017. We went out and we talked to Black folks for about a year. We visioned with them, particularly in Northeast Portland. And we had this beautiful list of demands around reform and beautiful things we wanted to see. We talked about everything from body cameras to the things we wanted to remove police from schools. Like we had a good list. But something in 2020 changed for us. I think as a staff, we kind of looked around the room and we were like, you know what? We're all kind of baby abolitionists, and we were all just not saying it out loud. I think there was this fun moment where for a long time it didn't feel as comfortable to say that you're an abolitionist, or even if you're saying you're anti-capitalist, like that wasn't something you talk about very often. So we kind of just looked at each other and we were like, okay, where are you feeling in this moment? And it was very clear that the full staff, we wanted to push an abolitionist framework. Some of us have been in this space for a little bit longer. They had books, they had been reading and learning about it for years. And some folks like myself were very, very new to the conversation. I always like to tell people that because I think it is important framing. I'm from Ohio originally. I have my grandfather was a sharecropper in Alabama, and then the other side of my family, Georgia, and came up to Cincinnati with the Great Migration, like many folks came to Oregon. And a lot of my family, they were really interested in this idea of inserting themselves into the system to change it with some really great intentions. They thought the problem was that we just didn't have enough Black police officers. So let's become Black police officers. Let's become fire department. So I have quite a lot of people in my family who are police officers. My father, for example, is one of them. Even though we disagree on this particular, so we can talk offline about the stress of that relationship as abolitionists with a police father. But I say that in the sense that we had a lot of good intentions, and we recognize that for Black folks, there's a lot of good intentions in this space. For 2020, the staff, we realized that despite all of our great efforts, despite trying to get Black folks, good people in this system, despite, all the trainings, we had friends and some folks even on POF's board that did trainings with the police, that were equity managers on Portland Police, and they tried their best. And if you talk to them offline, they got stories to tell and trauma, and they changed in that space. I also have family members who changed, who came with good intentions, and a blink of the eye, 10 years later, they're pushing really terrible and scary rhetoric that I never expected them to say, because that space is such a fraternity. It changes you. So I think we had a moment where we talked, we reflected, and as an org, we're like, you know what, we're going to push this abolition framework. We're going to challenge ourselves to learn a little bit more about what that means. We're not going to be afraid when people treat us differently because we're holding that line. We're also going to say no to some things that may not be for us. So sometimes folks will ask us, will you sit in on this training? We're like, nope, we're abolitionists. We actually don't want any more money going into this way. We want to reimagine it completely. And that didn't make us super popular, if I'm quite honest. So after we kind of aligned on that, we started pushing, and particularly we're really excited. We worked with Unite Oregon, which I think there might be some Unite Oregon folks in the room, are coming in a little bit late. And we pushed a defund campaign. So our goal was to get $50 million out of the Portland Police Department. We wanted that money to be reallocated to systems that care, systems like food systems, to money to nonprofits to do the work that they're doing. We were really excited. We got that $50 million down. Ooh, good stuff. Some challenging things because it went back real quick.
Yeah.
But so they cut some police positions, and if I'm honest, those positions they couldn't fill anyway. There's this myth that we don't have enough police officers, and I can, that's from their perspective, sure, but we've never had enough police officers. If you look back, there is a really interesting, federal case where it found that Oregon, particularly police in Portland, disproportionately targeted Black people. We know this. People who are with different abilities, so disabled folks, mental health folks. So we already knew that our police officers weren't doing the things that they needed to do. So we cut some positions. That's fine. We were able to get, police out of Portland Public Schools and some other spaces. But what we found very quickly, like within the next budget cycle, they put all that money back and more. Currently, Portland's has the biggest police budget they've ever had in history. Tons of positions that are open because, a lot of people don't want to be cops for reasons that I probably agree with. But it's just an inflated budget. So for us, we reflected. We made an organized demand. We won some things. We lost some things. We tested ourselves and our relationships to others. We had some really fun debates and collaborations, and we tried to kind of spread the message with some interviews of what we were thinking and dreaming about. Yeah.
A lot was accomplished, and like you said, I think we're feeling some of that pushback even till today. I've seen you all make friends and make enemies and persevere despite it all. So thank you for sharing that. I also want to ask, do we have any baby abolitionists in the house? I would consider myself one. So shout out to us for just taking that journey, right? It's an unlearning journey. I think we all have people in our lives and in our families who may be surprising us with some positions they're taking, but, we have to stay strong and steadfast in the work, and this weekend is a part of us expanding our knowledge, expanding our skill set and our connections to stay encouraged and steadfast in that work. And a part of that work is feedback and gathering information and insights. And you all have this beautiful Black Possibilities app. Shout out to the app. Is everybody on the app? I know you are, because you got to be on the app to be here. So talk to us about that and some of the ways that the app is going to be used throughout the weekend, as well as some of the ways feedback's going to be gathered.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think the first is we're going to do some announcements on the app. So being able to tell folks when we're pushing things back like we did today. We're going to start at 9:30-ish, letting folks know if there's any room updates. So if you can, download the app. If not, the registration desk where you got your lanyard would be a great place to just check in if you have questions. We're also going to be doing some surveys on the app, so asking some questions, checking in with folks about their experience, making sure that they're plugged in. Another thing that we're hoping that folks will do is just keep talking to each other and keep networking. There's a private little DM you can connect with folks. You can ask questions. You can exchange emails, whatever you feel comfortable with. And then also just a space to grab some photos, put some photos in there, grab some videos, ask some great questions, connect. What we learned, especially in the last 2 years, and I think it's really important in this moment, is that social media is just changing really, really quickly. I'm like a true millennial. I remember getting Facebook when I was in high school. I was one of the first folks that got high school Facebook, and it felt very different than it does now. It's very much a space for ads. For surveillance. I know a lot of folks who are trying to organize on these apps and actually getting caught up in having some real harm happen. We also know some amazing Black orgs who can't get their message pushed on the app anymore. So we created the Black Possibilities that we own the data. We won't share your information to advertisers. What we want to do is just find a way for us to connect privately, to ask questions with good intentions. So you don't have to know everything about everything, but you can say, hey, I don't know what abolition is. Can we talk about it? Or actually, you know what? I talked to my mom about this recently. She's very much a Pentecostal church woman. And she's like, why abolition? And we were able to actually go through Bible verses to talk about it. So I think it's a space where we can just ask some questions without judgment, where we can understand our intentions are great. We ask those great questions of folks when you sign up to just make sure that folks are aligned and willing to learn and respect each other. And yeah, hopefully this is a space we can continue to build outside of the summit.
Yes, I was going to say, it goes down in the DMs. Organizing goes down in the DMs on Black Possibilities app. So join, engage. And my final question for you is really a question for the audience. How can folks stay involved with the project beyond the weekend?
Yeah, thank you for that too. So in the discussions we're going to be having today and tomorrow, you'll notice that we'll be taking a lot of notes. And we're going to be typing those up, getting a report together. So part of our deliverables for ourselves as a team is we want to mirror this information back to y'all. We want to be able to say, this was what our organized demand is. These are the things we're wrestling with. These are things we actually may not have answers on, and we need to devote more time to it. So we're going to be doing a lot of that work, and hopefully we'll come up with a campaign that we can work on together, that we can plug into the organizations that maybe invited you to be able to like build statewide. How do we do this work in the long haul? I'm also thinking about this need to, like you mentioned, unlearn and learn together. I don't know about y'all, but I'm the kind of person who I learn best in community. Like I do love formal education. I love all those spaces. But some of the values I have and the things that I know about social justice, and I actually learn through friends and family, and sometimes through accountability. I thought I knew something, and they're like, okay, Joyce, calm down. Like, actually, you're wrong, and let me tell you why. So I think there's something really beautiful about learning in community. There's something really nice about having someone who is aligned with you and also letting you know when maybe there's gaps. So what we're going to be doing is taking it very, very old school. We're going to learn together. So we're doing a series of amazing book clubs. You're going to meet a staff member that just joined us, Rashida. Rashida is holding us down with some book clubs. There's a book in your book bag we're going to start with first. Let This Radicalize You. An amazing, amazing
Yes,
group of
hold it
folks.
up.
Yes, thank you, Paula. Great book. So we're going to bring folks together to read this book. We're going to have some spaces in person in Portland in our Old Town office. We're going to do some book club readings virtually for folks around the state. We're going to encourage folks to find groups and read the book together and have discussions. We're also going to actually ask our allies to read the book too, separately, but like we need y'all to read this book, to also do these book clubs, to also unlearn and learn with us, to ask questions. And then we're also going to do some additional programming. So we're going to be working and thinking about how do we support different nonprofits who are implementing and pushing for public safety that is community-led in their different spaces, and finding ways to connect people up. Yeah.
At Imagine Black, we envision living in a city that loves Black people. We imagine a world where every Black person has the rights, resources, and recognition to be part of a thriving, resilient, and connected community. We are freedom dreamers. Now is the time to invest in Black liberation and self-determination. Your support is critical to this work. A donation to Imagine Black helps us maintain our capacity to affect change in the Black community. Your contributions can help us build Black voter power, advance the call to reimagine our public safety and criminal justice system, and push for a just transition from an extractive economy to a regenerative economy. We all have a role to play in the movement for Black liberation. Go to imagineblack.org/donate. Please give generously. Together we will turn dreams into reality.